Mike?
Mike Neff from FrontStretch.com. Dale, you were, for lack of a better word, a victim of a team decision last week to ride around in the back, and then when the time came to run, you didn't really have enough laps to get to the front. I'm just curious, what do you think your dad would have thought if somebody told him to ride around in the back until the end of the race?
Well, I don't really want to answer that because I think you know the answer. So I was part of that team decision. I wasn't a victim of it. I bought into the same idea that my two crew chiefs and the driver of the 48, Jimmy, we all did that together, and we all made the choices that, got us our poor finish together. And no one person outruled or overruled the other. Everybody sort of collectively, we all sort of collectively sunk the ship as the race went on. But and it was disappointing. And at the end of the race, we collectively decided that we learned our lesson and that we won't do that again. So, given the opportunity to run that race over, we would have just, thrown ourselves into the fight and tried to run as hard as we could and taken whatever risk needed to be taken to stay toward the front. And hindsight is 20/20, but when we get that opportunity again, I don't think that's a strategy we'll ever use again. But I'm certain that a lot of things would be different if the old man was still around. We might not even be having to ask that question, of the guys riding around in the back. So,
any other questions for Dale? One more. Two more.
Hey, Dale. Johnny Buck with the Martinsville Bulletin. A lighthearted question for you that I've been asking a lot of the drivers. There was a NASCAR-themed party, Halloween party, and you were invited, and you could dress up as a current or former Cup driver, a NASCAR official. Who would you be and why?
Oh, man. I don't know. It'd be tough. I'd probably be Kelly Yarborough when he drove one of the 3 championship years in the mid-'70s or late '70s there when he was driving. I forget what the sponsor was on that car, but it was orange and blue and white, yellow and blue and white or whatever. What was it? No. It was in the '70s, man. It might have been Holly Farms, yeah. Yeah, it was Holly Farms. But he used to walk around with the suit with the stripes and the big cowboy hat. And I thought that was pretty tough. So I thought he looked like a badass. So but I was young then. I didn't realize he was shorter than everybody else. But when you're a kid, you don't know those things. But he still was a pretty badass dude, and I've always been a big fan of Kel's. And I thought that he was always really tough on the racetrack, and that's probably who I'd dress up as.
Dustin?
Dale, with your sense of history for the sport, certainly this week a lot of different issues have come up in the sense of manufacturers working together or not working with other people. Certainly what Chad said to Jimmy before the race and the controversy there. You can throw in the MWR, the windshield stuff, and things like that. For some people, it's created an outrage about how could the sport be like this in some ways. Is this just things that just happened 25 years ago, and for new fans, that's just the way it is? Or is this, or should NASCAR be looking at taking a different direction in regards to, I guess, an ethical standard with the competitors in a sense?
Yeah, that's a good. I mean, you have to always. I think it's wise to always sort of, get a reality check and ask yourself those questions, and make sure that you are ethical and going down the right path and everything's righteous. But for the most part, I think that everything that goes down in the sport is no different than what you would have in the past. I think we do have, a better governing body, a smarter governing body. We have a better inspection and technical process. Everything is much more orderly. From one end of this track to the other. Even including this room and how everything's handled. I mean, you know, everything's different. Everything's done better and smarter, and each year we learn how to make things more fluid and whatever. So, you know, it was a kind of a crazy weekend. I think the worst part about it is, for the lack of a better way to explain it, I feel my impression is that the race was a bit of a disappointment, and that people would, people are more fond, you know, now that the new has worn off from the 2-car draft, that people are, you know, recalling the pack racing and how much fun that was to watching this and that and the other. So, you know, that's sort of the, you know, that frustration there from whether it be fans or drivers is just sort of, you know, makes other things a little bit bigger and of a deal than they are, like what Chad said or what happened with Trix and his gang. All that stuff, the you know, what Chad did and the rule violations and things like that are consistent in this sport. Will always happen. As long as humans are involved in things, there will be a certain level of corruption and things that, you know, people trying to bend the rules and do things differently or better or smarter. Everybody's got their own ideas on what works and what doesn't work, and as long as you know, we're working with race cars with thousands of variables, and we'll always try to make those variables better than the next guy, even if it doesn't clearly state in the rule book, this is the way you need to do it. We'll try to do it however we think, you know, however we want to interpret that. And that's always been the case in this sport. And I think that's good. I mean, creativity brings on technology, better technology, smarter technology, safer cars. And so you sort of have to, and you need to have some parameters free to allow, you know, engineers and ingenuity and creative people in this sport. You know, there's a lot of rules that sort of shut out, you know, guys that, you know, made this sport. Like when the bodies got the way they are, where they're real stringent now. You know, it's not, you know, some of the guys that used to could make some pretty creative things on these cars as far as body goes. You know, how they used to move the tails over and move the nose over to the right and make the left front fender bigger. Those things don't happen anymore, you know, and those guys, those creative guys and the guys that, you know, ate, slept, and you know, thought nothing but how to improve the body of the race car. Those guys don't have as much freedom anymore. So, you know, you got to have things, some parameters open and allow some things to be able to be open to interpretation. Just so there's a little bit of unleveling of the playing field. So because things are pretty damn level with all the rules and restrictions as we get further and further down the road. But I think it's good. I think it adds some color to this. Yeah, it's super duper damn level. It's way too level. Like the body analogy, like, you know, years ago, if you looked at race, I remember coming here a long, long time ago. Well, not too long ago, but I was behind Ricky Craven, and I was like, man, it looks like I was telling Tony Jr. on the radio, it looks like he's backed his car into the wall, because they had the tailpiece on that car moved all the way over to the right, so the right rear quarter panel was straight. So I basically could read the sponsor on the left rear quarter panel standing behind the car. And I said, that's crazy as hell looking. And he, you know, me and Tony Jr. went back to the shop the next week, and he explained to me that, you know, all these guys in the bodies are moving the tailpieces over and getting the side force on the right rear quarter panel. And then they start, you know, and then I was looking at a picture of Bobby Labonte's car back when he run the interstate car, and I was like, you know, the Pontiac logo on the hood or on the nose of the car doesn't line up with the center of the hood. Why is that, Tony Jr.? He's like, well, he moved that nose over to the right to get the left front fender bigger, so it gets more downforce on the front. Those things, you know, and they started leaning, you know, sliding the roof over and getting, you know, doing things to get the spoiler in there. Can't do those things anymore, you know, with the bodies and the big cage they got and all that, which is fine. And but, you know, that sort of shuts out that creative mind, and a lot of those guys that were geniuses are sort of, you know, working now with an arm tied behind their back. The guys that are really, really good at finding those things. And so the playing field is super duper level in a lot of ways, more than it ever has been. And guys are getting, guys are going to get desperate to find whatever piece of advantage they can find. I don't think it's worth it, especially at the plate tracks with the two cars pushing. You see the 36 and those guys that obviously probably don't have the power, are running, much less funding up there, running as well as anybody. So I don't know why you would want to take the chance and do things like they did at Michael Shop, but that's what you do. When you're in such a small box and there's no, everybody's got everything the same. You got to find those. You add up one or two or three little things that sets you apart. That puts you in the top 1%. And everybody's getting desperate because you want to run good. Everybody wants to run good. So it's a very, very level playing field, though, extremely, with the COT.
All right. Thank you, Dale. Good luck on Sunday.